Our panel joins us now for Rapid Fire, some quick answers to some quick questions. Now, earlier this month, President Trump released his proposed 2021 fiscal budget. There are so many aspects of the proposal that we could dissect, but considering this is a college television station, we decided to zero in on the changes to student loan policy. Now, in the budget, President Trump is proposing an $170 billion cut in student loan spending. He outlined axing the student loan forgiveness program, which excuses public service workers who have been on the job for 10 years of the remaining student debts. It also proposed limits on how much money parents of students could borrow from the federal government to pay for education. Emma, I'm going to go to you first. What do you make of these proposals, and what do you think the effects will be?
I think it's quite horrifying that the government wants to, because he's taking this money to up the defense budget, which is already insanely high, and he wants to kind of take away from the people and not only student loans, but other social welfare programs, and that's just very concerning and upsetting to me that he would want to especially direct this money to somewhere it doesn't need to be.
Parker?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not like a proponent for federal loans. I actually do. I mean, I'm going here off of loans, but private ones though. But I do think, I mean, I would advocate for any like budget cutting, honestly, but I don't know if this is really the answer because the budget is still huge. Like, so, yeah.
Sam?
You know, as someone who's here on public loans, as someone who's the child of two public educators, as, you know, someone that believes that public education is a right for every individual, I think it's absolutely god-awful what's going on. His cuts, you know, not only to this, but to other social welfare programs, Medicare, Medicaid, social, SNAP, food stamps.
Yeah.
You know, it's the absolute wrong thing to do, and it's hilarious to me and unbelievably ironic that the party of fiscal responsibility, the Republicans, are ballooning this deficit that the president, before Mr. Trump, President Obama, spent so much time working against Republicans to shrink that deficit. And here we are seeing the Republicans blow it up again.
Shep?
Listen, I'm not in favor of everything that's in this budget. I actually disagree with ending the public servant loan forgiveness program. But at the end of the day, things need to be cut. The reason why the deficit balloons under Republicans is because Republicans want to give people tax cuts, and the Democrats
not
don't
people.
let
CEOs.
And the Democrats, I'm in favor of middle and low class tax cuts. Not obviously.
I don't see them. Do you? Did you see them in the tax bill?
They exist.
I would like to see it.
My point is that the reason the deficit blooms is because Republicans want to give tax cuts, and Democrats won't let the Republican Party do commiserate cuts to spending, which need to happen. So you know what? Things need to get cut. Things need to be managed more efficiently, and things need to. I don't agree with everything in the budget, but the overall idea of cutting spending is not necessarily a negative.
Looks like we should do an economic debate in the future. On Tuesday, President Trump exercised one of the most coveted powers of the executive, the ability to grant pardons. Article 2 of the Constitution says that the president has the, quote, power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. One of the 11 people the president granted clemency to on Tuesday was former Illinois Governor Roy Blagojevich. In 2008, Blagojevich was arrested on charges that he offered bribes for the Illinois Senate seat, which was left vacant after Barack Obama was nominated president. However, one leans politically, I think it's pretty safe to say that that's corruption. It's pay for play. The governor was impeached, removed, and eventually convicted on 18 counts, and he was sentenced to 14 years in prison. At the time of his pardon, he had finished 8 of those years. So what I want to ask is what a lot of people are calling a double standard. President Trump asked Ukraine to investigate Hunter Biden on grounds of corruption, saying that what he was doing in Burisma was corrupt. The president just granted a pardon to someone who partook in a pay-for-play scheme for a Senate seat. Is this a double standard? Is President Trump eyeing away from corruption in the country but looking for it for his political opponents abroad? Shep, we'll go to you first.
I think that when you look at all of these pardons as a whole, you see a particular pattern start to emerge. Most of the major ones are either financial crimes or corruption crimes, and I think this speaks mainly to Trump's narcissism. He sees himself in these people. He's obviously been accused of corruption and financial crime in the past. And I think this is mainly to do with his own, he sees himself in these people, and that's the main motivator beyond anything else, in my opinion.
But I just want to bring it back to the question, is it a double standard? He's going against corruption in Ukraine against Hunter Biden, but here he's pardoning someone for corruption?
Yes, it's a double standard.
Okay. Parker?
Yeah, I've never really been a proponent for the pardon power, honestly. I think it was originally for like political accusations. So it seems kind of like Donald Trump just found the pardon button and then was just like, oh, and just like started hitting it. But really, I think, is it a double standard? A lot of, I don't know the specifics of that case, but a lot of them did like start doing like philanthropy and their money
This wasn't philanthropy.
Okay.
Blagojevich, President Obama was elected, and Blagojevich then, as the governor, had the ability to then fill that vacancy, and he started saying who wants it and offering bribes for the Senate seat.
I don't know about the double standard thing, but I do think, I don't really like the pardon power at all, just as general, like overgoing the verdict of a jury.
I do think it's important, whether you like it or not, to note that no matter what Trump's motivation is, the Constitution does not put any limit to the presidential pardon.
Except for moments of impeachment.
Except for impeachment.
Yeah.
Trump could, if he wanted, just say, I like this guy, and pardon him, and he would be allowed to do so.
And to be fair, all presidents use the pardon power.
Yes.
It's not a partisan, Republicans do it, Democrats do it. Emma?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% a double standard. Donald Trump only does what Donald Trump thinks is in his best favor. And he doesn't think he's corrupt, so it's a double standard when we look at it from a realistic perspective. But it's a double standard, and it's ridiculous.
Sam, last word on pardons?
Like you said, president's pardon, Democrat, Republican, and in fact, Blagojevich, he himself is a Democrat, and he was, regardless of political affiliation, what he did was wrong. He did not finish his sentence. It's been a long time that he's been in jail,
8 years.
but the sentence was given to him, regardless of the good behavior. What he did was wrong. This could turn political. We don't know. It definitely is a double standard. If the president wants to, look at corruption abroad, he should be looking at it in his own administration, looking in the mirror.
All right. Next topic. Earlier this month, President Trump engaged in what's now being dubbed a post-impeachment purge. That's when he fired 2 prominent impeachment witnesses. On February 7th, the president fired Ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who sat on the national security staff. Both of these career diplomats offered testimonies before television cameras that linked the president to the hold on Ukrainian military aid. What I want to ask is, again, about precedent. What effect will these firings have on future congressional investigations? Is this setting the precedent for future administration officials that if they have credible and relevant information for a congressional testimony that they want to come forward with, that they have to then be worried about losing their job? Sam, you first.
I think that this goes into the larger discussion about protecting whistleblowers. I really don't think that enough reform has been made to ensure that people who go up and talk against the wrongdoings of their superiors, there needs to be a more federal protection for that. And I see that happening if there's a Democratic administration in the future. But this only does more to serve the pandering that the Republicans have been doing, saying that their president's doing the right thing. I really don't see in the future that there's a precedent that's going to be established. For some people, it depends, really. My words are getting twisted just because how complicated the issue is, and seeing that this is a normal thing that happens. They work and they serve at the pleasure of the president. That phrase exists.
Emma, are these 2 firings putting a precedent in danger?
I do think, especially because the Republican Party is so united behind Trump, if they were to get themselves into the same position, they certainly would listen to what the president has done before. And it is, again, I keep saying all of this is frightening, but it is because it's criminalizing telling the truth. And that's not what this country is founded on, and it's
I will
scary.
say just the Republican Party is publicly united behind Trump. If Sanders wins the presidency, see how fast non-socialists suddenly start espousing socialist policy on the Democratic side.
All right. Don't want to go back into 2020 because then we'll get stuck on it for hours. Parker?
Yeah, I I don't really know about if it sets a precedent. I think the president is allowed to fire these people, like you said. They serve at the pleasure of the president, and like you did say that the Republicans are united behind Trump, but I do think that the Democrats are very united against Trump. So like there is actually a lot of people who don't agree, who haven't agreed with the outcome of the impeachment in the House of Representatives. So I'm not surprised that he fired them, honestly, and I don't think it sets a dangerous precedent at all, because if I was president, like, you would want people serving under you that are for your administration, you know, so.
But they told the truth about
Exactly.
things that they witnessed.
Yeah.
They're not lying.
Yeah.
So
The assumption is that
There you go.
just to make it clear, they came forward because they were telling the truth, not because they weren't favorable of the administration, because they were asked by their country to come forward with truthful information, so they did.
Yeah, and I think whether or not, okay, so they told the truth is what we're assuming. I don't know. Some people,
Of course
They
they
did.
did.
I really
they
don't-
told, they were held under oath. They had no
a lot of
choice.
the,
No,
okay, I'm just saying the
continue.
outcome of the
I
impeachment
will say,
is very highly
lying under oath
contested.
is
Okay.
not unprecedented.
Perjury is
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So I do think I don't think it's off limits for Trump to be firing these people now, and I don't think it sets a dangerous
Shep,
precedent.
quick last word.
Yeah, I don't support the firings. They do serve at the pleasure of the president. I don't think they should be fired. In fact, I agree with you. There should be stronger whistleblower protections and stronger protections for those who testify. They don't exist now. Trump is very big on loyalty to him more. And I think it's understandable why he fired them. Do I think they should have been fired? No, but I understand why he did it.
Last topic is really nuanced, so I want to walk through the facts. On Thursday afternoon, the New York Times reported that intelligence officials briefed the House Intel Committee on their findings that Russia is actively interfering in the 2020 election with the intentions of helping to re-elect President Trump. The Times continued, writing that the president was angered by this briefing because he feared the Democrats would use the intelligence against him. All this just 2 days after the president tapped Richard Grenell to become the new acting director of national intelligence. Now, a little on that front. The DNI was established after 9/11 as the point person to oversee the intelligence agencies. It reports threats and other intel briefs to Congress. Now, this Grenell guy, he's the ambassador to Germany, who has very little experience in intelligence. So here's where the facts stand. The President of the United States tapped a new DNI who has little experience after the former acting DNI allowed for a congressional hearing on ongoing Russia meddling in 2020, which angered the president. All that considered, I want to ask, what are the national security implications? And do you think that this move, this new nomination, and the fact that President Trump was angered by the fact that Congress was briefed about the Russian meddling, do you think that's jeopardizing our national security? Parker, you first.
I actually think they came out, both House Democrats and Republicans both came out asking for more information about like what was the extent of the Russia, and how did they assume that it was in relation to the Trump administration. I think both party lines wanted to figure out like how is this related to Donald Trump.
But still, what I want to talk about is
yeah.
the fact that the DNI doesn't have intel experience,
Yeah.
very important role, and also the fact that this happened a couple days after the briefing to Congress happened when Trump was reported to be upset about it.
Yeah, I don't know all of the qualifications of either of those people, but I still think that it's the president's choice to nominate who he wants to these positions.
Do you think but to get back to the question, I'm sorry, but I want to get back to the question. Do you think this is dangerous for the country's national security or even for election security?
No, I don't think it's dangerous. I think the country is more on the radar of looking out for these Russia interferences than ever. And I do think it's probably just like Trump reacting because we just had how many millions of dollars of taxpayers went into an investigation on Trump and Russia and nothing came of it. So I'm not surprised that Trump took this action, really. And
Well, to just push back on that a little bit, you said that the country is putting a lot of money into monitoring this Russia meddling.
Yes.
They found it, and that's what was briefed to Congress.
Yes.
But anyway, Shep, we'll move on to your opinion.
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand why Trump was annoyed. I mean, it's obviously going to be used as a political tool against him, regardless of anything else. With regards to Grenell, I mean, Trump has a history of putting people he likes in positions regardless of anything else. I honestly don't think necessarily it's tied to the fact that he didn't like the briefing. I think it's more tied to the fact that Trump has a history and a habit of putting people in various positions that he likes more than any other qualification. Him liking them is his main qualification. Do I think that's a good thing for the country? Not necessarily. I believe that the most qualified person should be in the position regardless of personal opinion.
I just want to ask one follow-up to something
Yeah.
you said in the beginning. You said that the president, of course, would be upset by this briefing because he knows that Democrats are going to use it against him. What is the line? When is a briefing from your national security team and the factual information that meddling is happening, when does that become more important than partisanship?
I mean,
You need to ask both parties, honestly.
I mean, the fact is that I understand why the president is upset. I think that the briefing is fair game.
Fair enough.
But I understand why the president's upset about it. I also think that it's important to note that so far all we have is that Russia is meddling in the campaign with according to the report, the purpose of re-electing Trump, which again you can't really blame Trump for unless he's cooperating with them, which we don't have evidence of right now.
You can question his anger about it, but anyhow, Emma, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a security issue, and the fact that Donald Trump won't acknowledge that is a threat to our democracy. It's helping him get reelected, and that because of his narcissism, as we pointed out before, he's not going to step up and realize that it's putting our democracy and our principle of free and fair elections at risk, and it's again, I keep saying this, but it's frightening.
Sam, we'll give you the last word.
Let's not get it twisted. Okay, let's look at this. Let's take this for what it is. There's the best intelligence officials on the planet who are the most amazing at doing their jobs. These are public servants that have been serving our country, some of them for decades, their whole careers. Regardless of how you want to use this, if the president thinks that the Democrats are going to use this as a political tool, this is fact. We have foreign interference in our elections, and that's what we really need to be worried about. And the fact that the president and his party aren't taking this seriously, the fact that Senator McConnell isn't allowing more election protections to be put into federal law, and he's blocking that, letting that die in the Senate, it's a betrayal to the country, period.
All right. We tackled a lot this episode. I want to thank you all so much. We could have gone on for hours more, but we'll definitely have you all back. Sam Blake, Emma Wasserman, Parker Staub, Shep Gersberg, thank you guys so much for coming on. Loved having you. When we come back, our star behind the scenes, fact checker Kyle Anderson, will make his GWTV debut with our debate fact check. Stay with us.